Greetings to everybody. This is Samvardhan Tiwari this side, and today I'll be presenting my presentation on the topic India after Decriminalising Section 377 with special emphasis on Marriage Equality Act. The topics which will be covered throughout this presentation would be with an introduction, the Bagri Act 1533, LGBTQIA plus from India's historical perspective, Special Marriage Act 1954, NAF Foundation versus Government of National Capital Territory of Delhi 2009, National Legal Service Authority versus Union of India 2014, and finally with a deliberate discussion on Marriage Equality Act and its relevance in 21st century. The worst form of inequality is trying to make unequal things equal. As rightly stated by one of the greatest philosophers of all time, Aristotle, India, a country with over 120 crores of population, often embodied as the mother of democracy and the epitome of secularism. But even after 75 years of independence, can we really say that we are all treated equally in the eyes of law? With the current discussions happening in the Supreme Court of India regarding the Marriage Equality Act, let's dive deeper into this. I honestly sometimes wonder that from where this taboo and stigma erupted for LGBTQI plus organization. With the West being ironically more liberal in the 21st century, I was able to trace its origin back in the colonial era. The Bagri Act was piloted through Parliament by Henry VIII's minister, Thomas Cromwell, and considered the act of sodomy between men and women and bestiality as a capital offence. Initially, the act was passed with the intention of simply taking a canon law and making it a civil law, a test case in removing church power. But later, thanks to Thomas Macaulay, who drafted the Bagri Act into the Indian Penal Code of 1960, and it has survived as Section 377. It initiated a series of uproar and discrimination which lasted for more than 400 years. While 11% of all teens reported facing sexual violence in the past year, 18% of girls and 22% of LGBTQI plus youth reported the same. Among the racial and ethnic groups, American Indian or Alaska Native teens were the most likely to have faced sexual violence. The Trevor Project's 2019 National Survey on LGBTQ youth mental health found that 39% of LGBTQIA plus youth seriously contemplated suicide in the prior year, with the 71% of LGBTQIA plus youth feeling sad or hopeless. All these factors clearly imply that this area needs urgent attention of law and order. But was it really like this in India from the beginning? Is it true that the entire concept of LGBTQI+ is just another Western ideology spreading rapidly because of globalization? As a history enthusiast, I can definitely say no, that's not true here. Let's look at this issue from India's historical perspective. We have multiple evidences to support this, especially from the ancient era. Ancient Sanskrit texts like Kama Sutra became perhaps the first ever text to not only proclaim and view males and females in an equal view, but also recognize the third gender and included provisions for same-sex relationships. Sculptures of Khajuraho temples artistically showcase the openness and the liberal acceptance that the ancient Indian society followed. In terms of administration, law, and governance, Shastras provide us with multiple accounts stating that the same-sex relationships was treated in a normal context and was not condemned openly. Hence, India has time and again testified about its openness and empathetic nature. Our history itself should inspire us to modernize our age-old colonial mindset and do better. In terms of modernizing law and becoming more accessible and accepting in nature, 1954 marked the beginning of a new era for the citizens of India. The purpose of the Act is to establish consistent legal measures to protect those who want to marry across castes or religions. By establishing a system for interfaith marriages, the Act serves the interest of all Indian people. It is applicable to any person irrespective of religion. Hindus, Muslims, Buddhists, Sikhs, Christians, Parsis, or Jews can also perform marriage under the Special Marriage Act 1954. Interreligion marriages are performed under this act. This act is applicable to the entire territory of India and extends to intending spouses who are both Indian nationals living abroad. Personally, I consider this act as one of the first bold acts as it challenged the age old traditions and beliefs about the traditional Indian marriages and paved a new modern way for the Indian law system. Starting off with the landmark judgment of NAS Foundation versus Government of National Capital Territory 2009, it became one of the very famous acts of India as it officially decriminalized Section 377. The two judge bench viewed that treating consensual homosexual intercourse as a criminal offense is a violation of fundamental rights, which is protected by the Indian Constitution. Moving on to the National Legal Service Authority versus Union of India 2014 became another landmark judgment for recognizing transgender as the official third gender. India also displayed a remarkable example for the other countries by adopting the reservation policy for the transgender people as they were socially, economically, and politically backward and faced a lot of discrimination. Finally, this brings me to the current debate happening in the courtrooms of Supreme Court, which is the discussion about the Marriage Equality Act. Lately, 18 couples have petitioned in the Supreme Court to legalize same-sex marriages. A very high-profile five-judge bench is involved, having Justices Sanjay Krishnan Kaul, Ravindra Bhatt, Hema Kohli, and P.S. Narasimha, besides the Chief Justice of India, Justice Dhananjay Y. Chandrachud. Some of the main areas of contention arising here are that the ideology of same-sex marriages does not go with the system of Indian households and families. Some have stated that this issue is representing an urban elite point of view and hence catering a very small population, but on the other hand, notable lawyers like Menka Guruswamy have emphasized how marriage itself is an entire bouquet of rights and how basic services like medical insurance, life insurance, pension schemes are so difficult when it comes to availing it for the LGBTQIA+ crowd. The making of enlightened citizens starts from an early stage, and hence the Indian education system needs to obtain and devise a diverse curriculum which will prevent the citizens of tomorrow from falling on the lines of majoritarianism and focusing more on normalization in Indian society. To emphasize further on this, I would like to illustrate a very basic example. In our class 11th NCERT political science textbooks, we have always read and studied about the landmark judgment of 1973, Keshav Nanda Bharti versus State of Kerala. Why not include other cases like that of NAS Foundation or NALSA so that the student can understand and view the LGBTQIA+ crowd with a non-discriminatory sense? Similarly, campaigns and initiatives should be run in order to increase awareness. As we already know, most recently, Supreme Court of Nepal orders registration of marriages from same-sex couples. Likewise, most of the modern democracies are running on the same line. Similarly, India should also gear up to change its age-old English laws and modernize it according to the changing needs of the modern crowd. In the end, I would just like to quote Linda Ellery: people are pretty much alike, it's only that the difference are more susceptible to definition than our similarities. This is Samvardhan Tiwari signing off. Thank you and have a wonderful day ahead.